Hey nerds! This video is intended for two kinds of people. One, returning viewers and listeners who want a quick catch up on everything that's happened so far. And two, new viewers who don't really want to go back and listen to 100+ episodes of audio content and want to just jump right in where we started with the video so they can see our beautiful faces. This recap, The Great Harkening, should get you caught up to episode 116. We started video at episode 113, and I highly recommend watching those videos, but episode 116 is where our DM Ethan graciously handed the DM reins over to our new DM Seth, so I figured that was a pretty good place to get everybody caught up on board. Quick disclaimer here that I cannot put every single detail of everything that's happened into this video, so if you want more play-by-play kind of action, you can check out my series Harken Back, which is audio only, but it's short 30-minute episodes with narration and clip show, and if you want a little more detail than that, you can just listen to the episodes. With that out of the way, here we go. Our story takes place in the warring world of Elbor. The old gods, Famir, Atir, Laurus, Fenra, and Eldoria, have recently been displaced by the new gods, Zachriel, Lathiel, Sidriel, Edriel, and Amriel. Not everybody is happy about this regime change, however, and the three nations of Elbor are locked in a vicious 30-year war. Ondale, the land of technological advancement, and Deure, the nation dedicated to harnessing magic, would sooner die than give up their long-held traditions. Kaldor, the empire of military might, on the other hand, has taken on new traditions and seeks to liberate the rest of the world from the failures of the old gods. We begin the campaign at Coldcrest Outpost, a vital military base on the front line of the war. Kellic Grey, a half-drow cleric, has recently been relieved of duty by the ornery Commander Vash because it seems he can no longer channel the healing magics of the old god of light, Famir. Before Kellic can pack his bags, however, he is approached by Flynn Fellowweave, a halfling fighter and fledgling member of the Ironlight Collective, a monster hunting guild, and an Aarakocra druid named Shreya from the nearby forest. That forest has been beset by magical shadows that are driving everyone crazy and making them want to kill each other. So Flynn and Shreya are putting a team together to try and find the source of the problem. Kellic is still a believer in the old gods, so he sees this as kind of a divine intervention and agrees to join the team. Their conversation is interrupted by Jarnan Frosthane, Kellic's medical colleague and friend, who asks their aid in helping with two bodies that have washed up on the shore of the Shadowflow River. These bodies turn out to be Olma Marsk, a 12-year-old human sorcerer, and March, a Goliath paladin. The two of them have suffered wounds from some kind of explosion, and March has these mysterious crystals embedded in her skin. One of these crystals breaks upon its removal and releases the spirit of a woman named Amara, who possesses one of the corpses and flees and leaves a cluster of zombies behind in her wake. Olma and March explain opaquely that they need to get to Addersfield, and Flynn and Shreya's little forest is on the way to Addersfield, so they recruit them to their cause and the party sets out on their first adventure. The party discovers that the source of the pernicious shadows is this ancient crypt that the elves in the commune don't know anything about, and that the only way to get rid of the shadows is to reassemble the crown of this ancient spooky dooky being and the crypt's primary occupant, the Red Wolf. Around the casket of the Red Wolf are a number of other graves dedicated to his coterie, and one of them is conspicuously empty, that of Corvin Amberstone. Upon these graves, they discover an etching. In death as in life, I shall serve the outcast.
Vosronoth your due.
They make it to Addersfield, and Flynn partakes in an Ironlight Castle Ascension ritual, where he happens to overhear that a contract has been put out on Olma and March by a mysterious tiefling named Zergath. Flynn carefully tiptoes away, but the contract is taken on by his old nemesis and bully, Zorkal. Things escalate in the slums district of Addersfield, where the party learns that Zergath, Olma, and March were part of a thieves guild called the Hollow Guard, and that a heist gone wrong resulted in a disastrous explosion, which is how March got the crystals embedded in her skin. Zergath was less fortunate than March, however, as the crystals in his skin broke and released the being that was trapped within them, merging him in this being and creating a terrifying split personality. They scrape through this encounter and appeal to the leader of the Ironlight, a shrewd elf named Melaru, who, despite a certain callousness to their plight, takes pity on them and awards them amnesty, and instructs Flynn to get to the bottom of this crystal business. This trail leads them back to Coldcrest, where they come face to face with the war in progress. While most of the party tries not to take sides, Flynn puts an abrupt end to the assault by throwing a blast charge onto the front of a ship that's unloading troops onto Ondale's shore. They part ways with the Outpost, saying goodbye to Jarnan Frosthane once again, and head toward Blackpool, the place where Olma and March's misadventure began. an old dwarven mystic directs Flynn to the Bannock Warehouse, the Bannock Goliaths being a well-known nomadic merchant group. When Kellic tries to get further answers from the dwarf, he is magically ejected from the mystic's house. Still have no idea what that's about. The party is then waylaid in the swamp by Drek the Darkblade, a half-orc assassin that was sent to acquire the crystals no matter the cost. In a madcap attempt to prevent their seizure, March destroys the 2 prison crystals remaining in their possession, causing one of the spirits to disappear into the ether and the other to inhabit the body of one Flynn Fellowweek. Flynn grows horns and vanishes into an internal battle for his body, while Drek the Darkblade nearly kills the rest of the party. Olma burns Drek to cinders in self-defense. Resting on their way to the warehouse, Olma and March reveal some letters they found during one of their heists that mentioned that Frida Artemisia, the top cleric of Kellic's temple to Famir, was actually working for the Order of the Red Wolf. She was coordinating the capture of a legendary locksmith by the name of Bram Drumwind, who was forging one-of-a-kind magical keys for unknown reasons. When they get to the warehouse, they find that it holds no prison crystals nor magical keys, but instead the dislocated head of a warforged named Thaddeus, who reveals that March's long-lost twin sister, Amity, is still alive. With Thaddeus' intel, March bids a tearful farewell to the party to begin a long-overdue search for a sister she thought was dead. Confident that there are no more prison crystals to be found, the party turns their concern to their known pursuers, the half-orc, undead thing Amara from Coldcrest Outpost, and Zergath, the split-personality guy. Fortunately, Thaddeus knows a smuggler who might be able to find them some magical protection, and offers this information in exchange for his freedom from the Bannock Warehouse. They head to Solaris, where Thaddeus' contact is supposed to meet them, but a day goes by before he arrives. In the meantime, Shreya finds himself roped into a prison break, where he discovers an old wizard named Xavier is being held in Solaris' prison. That old wizard happens to be Olma's mentor, long before she ever got mixed up in this Hologuard business. When they return to Spring Xavier, they arrive just in time to find him being transported, literally by teleportation, to a higher security prison in Oakenspire, Caldor's capital. In a fit of rage, Olma kills a goading prison guard. A man who goes by many names, but prefers to be called Seeker, escorts them through secret underground tunnels where people are still practicing their faith to the old gods. They head to an old, dilapidated temple to Famir on the top of the Bartok Rise, where Seeker helps them acquire magical, divination-proofed necklaces. Observing the destruction in the temple brought on by the Long War, Kellic makes a commitment with Seeker to be agents of repair in a broken world. Flynn takes this to heart. They part ways with Seeker and head to Oakenspire to free Xavier from his prison, fearful of what the ruthless justice system of Caldor might do to the old man if left for too long. Their first stop is Marstock, a tiny town with few resources. On the way, Flynn's horns overtake him and he turns into a frenzied demon thing and they have to tie him to a tree in order to sleep safely. They also encounter a peculiar gnome by the name of Ernest Hobblepot, who speaks to invisible sources and then melts into goop. Before his liquefaction, Ernest brings to their attention a cleric by the name of Zeta Malakath, who resides in Oakenspire and might be able to help them. Seeking a cure closer in proximity, the self-anointed agents of repair go to the nearest temple in Marstock, a neutral place of worship tended to by a dwarf who will soon become one of their greatest allies. Hayfried Heavyfoot, a wizard once ruefully in the service of the Red Wolf himself, sees in their path a chance at his own redemption. He brings the agents into his pocket dimension, hereafter known as the Goopy Void, and instructs them to find an alternative vessel, a sheep maybe, for the creature in Flynn's head. Naturally, Flynn's dark passenger proposes an arrangement to the halfling. Power like he's never known. He refuses, but not before the demon lets on that it serves a creature known as Vas Ronath, the Outcast. After a divisive internal conflict among the agents, they force Flynn to accept the solution and pull off the ritual, turning a small sheep into a horrifying mutant and locking it into a cage within the void. They determine that the fastest way to Oakenspire is to sail from Direhand, but no one is at sea for fear of a cursed island that seems to appear and disappear at random. Luckily, one ship, the Howat Dugan, is still bound for the city, and its fearless first mate, Paston Broadhammer, welcomes them aboard. Once they dock in Oakenspire, the party encounters the cruel justice system of Caldor once more. Captain Barrett Hastel, a Goliath paladin, inspects their crew and arrests a young sailor named Timmy who doesn't have his papers, and is clearly just a victim of his own incompetence. They also overheard that Zeta Malakath, the cleric that Ernest Hobblepot told them about, has also been arrested and thrown in Oakenspire prison. They plan their second prison break, and with the help of a repentant, if conflicted, ex-soldier named Faraday, they pose as a health inspection team and penetrate to the deepest levels of the prison, freeing Xavier, Zeta, Timmy, and, somewhat randomly, Tito, Shraya's Aarakocra friend from childhood. And they would have gotten away with it too, if it weren't for newly appointed prison warden Barrett Hastel, who recognizes them from the boat. A brawl ensues. Hastel nearly kills Olma, who burns off half his face and banishes him in return, and the party only escapes by a teleportation spell cast by the very powerful wizard, Xavier. Timmy takes a job as Hayfried's new assistant, and Xavier explains to the party that he was looking into Olma's parentage and the source of her power when he was captured. As for Zeta, she is briefly possessed by the Outcast, and reveals to them that she signed a contract with him in the Deure ruins to the south. The agents use another teleportation circle out of the void to take Xavier and Zeta back to Addersfield, and seize the opportunity to check in on Mellarue. Despite Flynn presenting the head of a recently slain hook horror to Mellarue, she assigns his Outcast/prison crystal mission over to his rival Zorkal. Meanwhile, the rest of the party observes Flynn's mentor, Chath, pretty much abusing his students. They teleport back to Marstock and head out toward the Deure ruins, hoping to get some answers with regard to the Order of the Red Wolf and this mysterious figure, the Outcast, Vasronath. Their momentum is cut short by news from the warfront. Coldcrest Outpost has been overtaken by Caldor. Kellic reaches out via a sending spell to his old friend Jarnan and receives no response. At the Deure ruins, we reach the fulcrum of our hero's journey. The party witnesses a gathering of their foes, leaders from all around the world bound by service to the Outcast. They are in the midst of a sacrificial ritual, led by Artemisia and presided over by a desiccated dwarf with a familiar moniker, Corvin Amberstone, right hand of the Red Wolf. Among the villainous attendees are the leaders of the Kangxi Drow, the leaders of the Hollow Guard, the leaders of the Banuk Goliaths, and the Kodam Bo, this mysterious pseudoscientific political figure with a mind flayer attendant. Unable to quell their need to protect the innocent, the agents of Repair charge into battle and discover that among the intended sacrifices is Zorkal, Flynn's rival from the Ironlight Collective. The battle is short. Our heroes fall. In a vision of death's door, Kellic comes face to face with Zachriel, the new god of death, with whom he tests wills and pleads for a more active effort to end the war. Zachriel throws up his hands. His aim was to end the reign of the old gods and give the people the choice of what happens next. When Kellic points out that the new god's power is unevenly distributed and that a lack of power creates an absence of choices, the god is unmoved. Before Kellic can proceed to the afterlife, he is whisked back to consciousness. Revived by the undead half-orc Amara and the half-monstrosity Zergath, Kellic finds himself and the rest of the party intended to be used as additional sacrifices. Amara places one of Bram Drumwind's magical keys into a pedestal that opens a gateway to the plane of fire that begins to grow exponentially. The agents escape their bindings, capture their two foes, and close the gate, but Zorkal bears ill tidings of Flynn's closest friend and Melarue's daughter, Kaelin. They learn that Zorkal has been secretly tracking a murderous turncoat Ironlight Sentinel, and that Kaelin may very well be the Sentinel Slayer's next target. They send their swiftest courier, in the form of Shraya, up north to Saddlemount to deliver the news to Kaelin and ensure her safety, and head back to Marstock to interrogate their newly captured foes. On the way, Flynn asks Kellic to make sense of a book he happened upon in Oakenspire, The Tragedy of the Loss. The book details the events that led to the creation of the Waste, a massive expanse of dead land in the middle of the continent. There was once a city called Primordia where one could speak to the gods. The city was an idyllic place until a strange, red-cloaked girl appeared and created a swell of magic that leveled the city and most of the area around it. A group of adventurers were sent to stop her, but no one knows what really happened because no one ever returns from going into the Waste. The girl was known as the Fallen Storm, daughter to the Red Wolf. In Marstock, the agents are met with a familiar face in the form of Seeker, who has brought with him an old accomplice named Thessaly, an Aasimar paladin. Seeker declares that since his last adventure with the group, he has reflected on his path and wishes to align his cause with theirs. Given all their recent hardship, the agents are delighted to welcome Thessaly and Seeker onto the team. Kellic and Hayfried restore the sheep to sheephood, and Flynn undergoes his Ironlight ascension into sentinelhood, and with renewed vigor they subject Amara to questioning. Conveniently, she's quick to reveal their evil plan. The Order of the Red Wolf wishes to free the outcast Vasronath from his prison in the Abyss, and they believe by using Bram Drumwind's magical keys to open planar gates around the world, they can weaken the weave enough for this to take place. Once this is done, Vasronath will kill the gods, ending divinity forever. With this gnawing at their thoughts, the agents head north to Saddlemount to meet Shraya, There, they discover that the Sentinel Slayer is actually Chath, Flynn's mentor, who was driven mad by the empathy he felt for the monsters he was being sent to slaughter. Chath prevails upon Flynn that he's building a new version of the Ironlight, but to do so needs to cut out the evil from the old one. They clash and capture Chath, but Nessa, one of his converted Ironlight Sentinels, escapes. Their time in Saddlemount has alerted them to two realities. One, a Mind Flayer nest has taken root beneath the city, and two, the Codon Vo is courting the mayor for some venture or another. They enter the Mind Flayer nest to find that the Elder Brain has gone missing. Still don't know what that's about. But they seize the opportunity to capture the Codon Vo. In his cell in Hayfried's Void, the Codon Vo reveals his devious countermeasure, a Drow ward embedded in his skin that connects him to innumerable innocents that will activate and kill them all if he is not released within a week. Coincidentally, Elbor's winter solstice, the Long Eve, a period of 10 days of darkness, is about to begin, a ticking clock of dread wreathed in shadow. Before they can deal with that crisis, though, they are alerted to another planar gateway opening up in the Venville Rise, Shriya's original homeland. So they charter a boat, with the now captain passed in Broadhammer, through the icy waters. As they pass the deforestation of the Kaldorian war machine and come into contact with Shriya's people, they discover that the Aarakocra are being manipulated by a group of dark blades led by a man named Provel, using their wish to return to the plane of air as leverage by which to tear the weave asunder on behalf of the outcast. Some of Shriya's people wish to stay in the material plane, but their home here in the Venville Rise is being devoured by the Kaldorian war effort. As for the rest who want to go back to the plane of air, the Agents of Repair feel compelled to allow the gateway to be opened in order to get them home. So Shriya makes the difficult choice to become the leader of the material plane birds and find them a new home in Elbor. The rest of the agents play nice with the Dark Blades until it is time to close the gate behind the leaving Aarakocra, which the Dark Blades do not allow to happen without a fight. Seeker summons a blue dragon out of a playing card he got from his smuggler contact in Saddlemount, and that pretty much settles the dispute. With that world-ending crisis delayed once more, the agents set their sights on defeating their still imprisoned foe, the Codon Vo. They head into the Underdark to the city of Deure, where a rallying war cry is echoing off the walls. They ignore whatever the heck that's about, and head toward the scientific building, the laboratory where Lolinthir Ivanamith, the inventor of the Codon Vo's thousands of innocents killing ward, resides. Despite a great deal of subterfuge, they are discovered, and fearing the thousands of innocents dying time they might lose if detained, Kellic strikes their would-be captor, beginning a hellish skirmish with repercussions that will be felt for the foreseeable future. Kellic falls to poisoned crossbow bolts, and the onslaught of soldiers teleporting in from the ether seems unending. So Flynn calls upon an old deal he was offered. His previous demon is locked in a cage in Hayfried's Void, however, so a new entity steps in. Flynn becomes a 12-foot-tall demon, buying them time to seal themselves inside the laboratory. There, they find Lolinthir and escape via a magical teleportation device with a random trajectory. Lolinthir removes the ward from Codon Vo, and the party breathes a sigh of relief. But new intel from Xavier turns their sights towards Sunplume. There, they encounter a monk from the monastery where Olma was raised, Brother Brim, who is part of an elite group called the Order of the Everseeing and has been tracking Olma's magical signature. He helps them find the last place that Olma's family's signature was detected. They find the remains in the forest. Lethal magic has reduced Olma's family to hollow glass effigies beyond salvation. It is an enormous loss. But amongst the wreckage, they find an address that leads them back to a house in Sunplume, where a magical butler-esque construct that used to serve Olma's mother, called Keeper, helps to reconstruct a memory crystal that contains an immense secret. They learn in Olma's mother's house's basement that she is, in fact, the descendant of the Red Wolf. A man who, with the devilry of Artemisia and Corvin Amberstone, was intent on turning his progeny into magical superweapons with shards of divinity riven from the gods themselves. The fallen storm that destroyed Primordia and created the Waste was Olma's great aunt. As they exit the house, they find themselves amidst an ambush. One Barrett Hastel wielding a blade of darkness, and one Frida Artemisia, a cat who has caught the mouse once more. By sword and fire, the earth and darkness are split in an epic battle against some of their greatest foes. As the dust settles, Hastel's harrowed headless husk halts in a heap, and Artemisia staggers, skillfully skewered on a scimitar of scintillating starlight. The Agents of Repair are victorious, and capture Artemisia. And that should catch you up on everything plot-related up to episode 117. I can't overstate that our show is very character focused. So there's tons of stuff I could not include in this recap. There's tons of very intense internal struggle between the characters. There's a lot of headbutting. There's some romance. So please, if that interests you at all, you should check out the audio version of the show. It's really, really good. All that being said, I want to take this time to just thank everybody for being here, to thank our patrons, of course, but I also want to take the moment to thank everybody who has ever given even a cent to our show, who has ever commented on anything on our show, to anybody who's taken part in this in any way whatsoever. It has been very, 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 very meaningful to us, and we can't wait to bring more of it to you on video. Look at all these cameras. So we're gonna do that, and I can't wait for what the future holds. And without any further faffing about, goodbye, nerds.
Bye, nerds.